The House of Dies Drear, Chapter 6, Part 3. Ever so slowly, two doors in the platform opened. Thomas saw two hands in bright fire which turned the trees a slippery gold. Out of fire and out of the ground rose a huge head, huge shoulders. Up and up the thing rose, with a head full of hair that was red and yellow with light. The hair was hanging moss-like from its jowls, bristled and tumbled gold and orange. "Who's that? What's that?" called a harsh, loud voice. The frightful head looked down. Thomas saw its angry face. The eyes of it caught the firelight and glinted emerald and wet. The eyes of it found Thomas holding onto the earth. "What demon walks on Pluto's house?" "Devil!" Thomas cried out shrilly. He was breaking through the trees. "Devil!" Branches whipped at him. Needles stung him. He fell twice. Once he got turned around, heading toward the fiery light again. He tripped and somersaulted, barely missing a tree. But he picked himself up and ran again toward his own house, up and over the hill. He was sure that the devil waited for him somewhere in the trees ahead. "I've got to run," he told himself. "It's the nightmare. It's just like the dream in the car." It seemed to him he was moving ever so slowly. "I've got to run and hit it hard." When he ran into it, he would hit it with his full force. That way, he would cause it to pause long enough so that he could get around it in a way. But the man or devil, that Pluto, whatever he was, had fooled Thomas. He had not moved fast enough to get in front of Thomas. He caught up with him from behind. He caught Thomas in mid-stride. Thomas's legs were still running when Pluto's arms tightened around his chest and, with ease, swung him into the air. It happened so suddenly. Thomas had the notion that time had stopped. His mind went blank. Then it began to function almost reluctantly again, as did his struggle to free himself. One endless thought clawed its way into and out of his head. No old man who was lame, who was like any old man anywhere, even if he weren't lame, could ever catch him from behind. No, nor lift him off that ground and hold on to him. Devil, devil. Let me go, Thomas whispered. The man, that Pluto, heard Thomas and laughed. It was a mean laugh, like a snarl. "You rounders," he said, "think you can come scare me out of my wits? You want to know? I have found it before you, and you ought to see it." Something bright exploded inside Thomas. He had no time to put away carefully and remember what Pluto had said. Now he was awake when a moment ago he had felt inside a dream. He lashed back with his elbows in a motion that was swift and unexpected. Thomas let out a grunt and his body sagged just enough for his arms to relax. And I want to go back to the previous paragraph where it starts out, "You rounders." The second sentence in asks a question. It says, "You want to know? I have found it before you, and you ought to see it." And it seems kind of random, and I don't know exactly what Pluto is talking about. So I'm wondering, what is he saying? You want to know. What does he think Thomas wants to know about? Thomas ran free. That devil was coming also. Thomas could hear him, and he was not running, but striding swiftly through the trees. Thomas was over the crest of the hill. Below him were lights in the new house. The house was sweet to see. Thomas laughed. It was no better than a cry, and he ran faster once he had cleared the trees. Thomas burst open the kitchen door, tripped over the threshold, and slid across the linoleum on his stomach. He hit the table. Dishes crashed to the floor. He lay there, trying to breathe. Someone bounded down the stairs. It was his papa. He heard his mother calling, "What is it? What's happening?" Somewhere above, the twins let out a tired wail. Mr. Small was shocked by the scene that greeted him. Thomas lay sprawled half under the kitchen table with broken dishes around him. There was mud on his trousers and a lone dirt skid mark across the linoleum. The kitchen door lock had been pulled completely out of the molding and hung useless by one screw. Mr. Small couldn't think why he had locked the door in the first place, since he knew Thomas would be returning by way of it. But he had, and now he couldn't imagine what force had pulled out the lock. Mr. Small kneeled beside Thomas. "Thomas, son," he whispered. He didn't touch the boy, but absently picked away bits of splintered glass from Thomas's shirt. Mrs. Small came in and kneeled down. "Who did this?" she said. "Is he bleeding? Thomas, please get up." "Locke," Thomas managed to say. He tried to keep his voice from trembling. It's He's coming. Lock. He was too tired to bother with making sentences. All he wanted his mother to do was lock the back door so Pluto, that devil, whatever he was, wouldn't be able to get to him. There was the sound of heavy feet on the rear veranda. A loud knock on the door caused it to slowly swing open, and framed by night stood that massive, black, and bearded man some souls called Pluto.